Thank you everyone for joining us. This is the CMJ online prayer meeting. I'm John Brooks, and our guest speaker tonight is Eime. It's great to have Aaron with us. We're hoping there's no need to run to any bomb shelters, and we get a very up-to-date account of life in Israel. And Aaron's going to share for the most of this meeting. We're not going to use breakout rooms. We're just going to have an open time of prayer. Once Aaron's finished, we are recording it because some people might not be with us but would be interested in Aaron's update, but we're not going to record the prayers. So your prayers will just be unrecorded. And if you have any questions, use the chat facility, and if Aaron can address them, he'll pick them up as we go along. If not, we'll leave the call open and Aaron can perhaps work his way through your questions at the end. We do plan to end officially by our 7:30 watershed for anybody that needs to be away. And we will finish with a very short notices from the UK, so everybody can have a context of the UK items, but we will be focusing just on the CMJ Israel items for prayer. I think it's an appropriate thing for us to do at this time. Everybody's muted, I think, other than me and Aaron, and I'll hand over to Aaron and we'll use the raised hand facility for managing our prayers when we get to that bit, and I'll go through that again at that point. Okay, Aaron, over to you. Thank you, Aaron.
All right, thank you very much, John. And it's absolutely delightful to be able to have you all here, to be able to pray and pray together. You probably don't know how meaningful and wonderful and how much we covet actually your prayers at this time. Now, we're always praying for each other. It's true. And sometimes we might not even, especially if life's going great, just think, oh, they're praying for us, that's nice. But you wait until it gets serious, and then you suddenly realize how powerful prayer is, especially when sometimes that's the only thing you can hold on to. So thank you very much for your prayers. I'm looking forward to praying with you later on. In terms of the update, I'm going to share a little bit about what we're doing here in Jerusalem and what it's a little bit like from our perspective. And then I'll share a couple of words from the Bible, which I think are poignant to some of the information that's going around in the media, and then we'll go into prayer time. So we are at day 19 of our war with Hamas and Israel, and it's a bit sad to say, but kind of done this before. Isn't that sad to say that? We've had a few fights with, I've been living in Israel for 25 years, and this will be the 4th time that we've had a fight with Hamas. I've lived through one war with Hezbollah and one intifada. And do you get used to it? Kind of. But obviously I've got a son in the IDF, and that puts a little bit extra skin in the game, doesn't it? But also is actually what I'm physically seeing amongst my neighbors and amongst the community that is functioning here in CMJ. We have, it seems like there's a little bit of a lull in the conflict. So when we first started, I'm sure everyone was bombarded with information, and the numbers of the victims were increasing, and the images that were coming from the TV and from our WhatsApps and news groups and things like that was even more shocking all the time, and it was a real shock. And then there was a sense of panic and some despair and sadness, lots of questions. There definitely was a large amount of anger, and then the emotions went on a little bit of a roller coaster as time went on. People got angry at the government. How did you let this happen? When are you going to attack? when are you going to release our hostages? And people were saying all kinds of things and coming up with really no solutions, and perhaps there might not be one. We have currently 222 hostages in Gaza. This is something that has never happened before, and this is a situation that Israel has never faced. So many people in captive, babies as well as the elderly and mature, men, women. I mean, you name it, and foreigners. Thai people, Nepalese people who had come to work the land here suddenly found themselves as part of a conflict. But even though we seem to be in a bit of a lull in the sheer number of rockets that are coming, which has dramatically decreased, don't be fooled. That's the thing. Don't be fooled when things look like, and I'll put this in close quotes, they're getting better. Hamas released some hostages, and the media jumped on this and said, "This is fantastic. You know, isn't this wonderful?" As though praising Hamas that they've done something good. They haven't done anything good. Right? Don't even get fooled by that. This is actually one of the problems that is coming to us in our current day. We're like, if you're like me, you're being bombarded with news feeds and information and commentary, and it's not always easy to make sense of what's going on. But one aspect that does need to be shared is the spiritual aspect, and it's the bit that the media is never going to talk about. A lot of what you see of commentary by media is ill-informed, completely irrational and illogical in so many different ways. But what's behind this, at its root cause, is spiritual. And there is a side of this. Yes, it's practical. Yes, it's played out in the natural. Yes. But there is a spiritual side of this, which is anti-Semitism. At its core, there's some enemy that hates Israel so much that it has blinded the world to this thing, and the media is never going to say it. And so, therefore, I encourage you, brothers and sisters, that when you do talk about it with others, that you don't just sort of click things on social media, but you actually physically talk about it, that you actually bring that up. You say, there's another side of this that actually we might not be talking about. It's that for some reason, people seem to hate Israel a lot. And why is that? But that's, I guess, part of the misinformation that's going out there. So how do we react? How do we react with all this bad news and this confusion that's floating around inside Israel and outside of it? Well, I guess, obviously, let's act like the Messiah. And what did the Messiah do? He did not despise the human condition. He didn't reject our suffering. He engaged in it. Isn't that amazing? The Messiah engaged in suffering. He didn't run away from somebody's pain. He didn't run away from somebody's hurt. He didn't run away from the enemy. He participated in it. He overcame it. He gave us an example of somebody who endured suffering and persevered. And that's what we're doing here in Jerusalem. Yesterday at Christchurch, we received 23 Russian Jewish people from Ashkelon, who inside Israel, there are close to 250, now getting up to nearly 300,000 refugees, internal refugees, people who cannot live or do not feel safe enough or comfortable enough to remain in their own homes. So Ashkelon is a port city. It used to be a Philistine city. It was one of the 5 Philistine cities that you might read in the Bible. It is today a 100% Jewish town of about 150, 160,000 people. It's a deep water port which has been built just like Caesarea was built by King Herod, the Israelis built a port. It's Ashkelon, and it's got a high proportion of Russian Olim, Russian Jewish people. So Russian is spoken there very much, and they have received over 1,000 rockets so far. So every couple of hours there's a siren. Every couple of hours they're having to run to their bomb shelters. So after 2 weeks, so many of those people have had enough, and they're tired, they're scared, and they're looking for somewhere safe. Now, here's the irony of the Middle East, which the news media won't tell you. A 100% Jewish town is unsafe. So where do the people go to? They go to Jerusalem, which is half of it's Arab. Now, isn't that a piece of irony for you? Jewish people will go to Jerusalem, which is half Arab, and they'll feel safer. And they've come, these are non-believers. Okay, so the Messianic Jewish community of Ashkelon reached out to its neighbors and said, if you're feeling unsafe and you don't know what to do, we'll find a place for you. And so Christchurch has received their first batch. The number will get up to about 57 by Shabbat. And then once the overflow, once more people have come, then Canada House will also receive some people, including some Gazan Christians. So these are people who, now, how did Gazan Christians get out of Gaza, I hear you ask? Well, it's because they were on medical leave to do surgeries inside Israel. The hospitals in Gaza don't have their proficiency in medical treatment isn't very high. So many people come to Israel for medical treatment, and the border crossings, though they are closed, they still allow some material in and out. So what is Christchurch doing? What are we doing in Israel? Well, we're not running away. We're not leaving. Many people have. Many Christian societies have closed up and left. But we feel that as a disciple of the Messiah, that we need to follow his example and engage in suffering. So we don't shy away from it. We're going to cry with those who need crying. We're going to laugh with those who need laughing. And we're going to do our best to just journey with people through this crisis. And that's what we think is beneficial. Now, if this is what we're doing in Israel, and here you are in the UK, well, how can we engage, Aaron? How do we get involved? Well, it's this simple. It's this way. Just engage with your local Jewish community. How are you guys feeling? I can't solve it for you, but you know what? I can still stand with you. I don't have to run away, and you can engage with your neighbors. How do you feel about the conflict? And if you're in despair, okay, I can hear that. I will sit with you, and I won't judge you. I won't try and tell you how wrong you are or how right you are, but rather journey with them in their suffering. And in that way, you actually might find the opportunity to share and to actually express the love and hope of the Messiah. Because when the world seems hopeless, that's actually one of the three things we have to offer this world: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is not faith. That's for another topic. Okay. Yes, love's up there, but hope is actually what Peter tells us, that we have to give a reason for the hope that we have. Out of no one has to give a reason for the faith that you have, because actually no one cares. In case you haven't noticed, no one actually cares if you believe in Jesus. Usually what happens is, Aaron, you and Jesus, that's fantastic. You just go sit in the corner, and me and my crystals, we're going to just sit here and we're fine, thanks. Don't you impose your reality on my reality, as if such a thing could happen. Right? There's no such thing as realities. There's just one thing. But no one also cares about your love. No one ever says, Aaron, stop being such a nice guy. You know, we're annoyed by that. We're devastated. Please go out and be mean to somebody. Kick a dog for crying out loud. Okay, no one says that. You don't have to give a reason for why you are a good person or why you love. But you know what you have to give a reason for? Why do you have hope? The world is hopeless. If you don't have a God, if you don't believe in anything, then when you close your eyes for the very last time, that's it. And that's rather sad. But you and I believe that the Messiah is on the throne. You and I believe that the King is actually ruling and reigning. And so there is hope that we can actually give these people. And that's something that they're going to see. And they're going to see that in our lives. They're going to see that in the reasons why we love and why we have faith. One thing I'd like to address, I get a lot of emails, as you can possibly imagine, and I do not have time to respond to them all. And for that, I guess I am, I was going to say I'm sorry, but I probably am not. That would be a lie. I just can't get to them all. But many people will, in a loving Christian way, will say, Aaron, but don't you think we as believers should turn the other cheek? In all of this mess, I mean, come on, look what Israel's doing to the Palestinians, and it's cruel and it's horrible, and we need, as Christians, to turn the other cheek. And that is a fantastic teaching of the Messiah. It's unique, almost. You have in Matthew 5, Jesus says, you've heard it said, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, don't resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn your other cheek also. If someone wants to sue you and take your shirt, then hand over your coat as well. Well, first of all, this is taken out of context. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's from the Torah, and that's used in a judicial sense. It's a legal sense. Someone's gone to court and said, this person poked me in the eye. What's the punishment? Okay, so it's talking about a legal sense. So here we're talking about an internal community response. Jesus is teaching us something that applies to our community, the way you and I relate to each other. And that is something, if we do that, if we actually do this, it will be attractive and people will want it. So, wow, your community is unlike other communities. The way you behave with each other is different from the way other people behave. I like that. You tell me why you do this. So this is the teaching of the Messiah. This is the way he wants his community to relate. What we can't do, brothers and sisters, is superimpose that on a secular state. That's not the way this works. So you're taking a teaching of Jesus, and which is personal and for the community and the followers of Jesus, and you're saying, this is how foreign governments, which are secular, they need to behave. Well, it doesn't work that way, especially when you've got chapters like Romans 13, where Paul says very clearly, pray for your governments because they have a responsibility to keep the law. So what does that look like for someone like you and me? Well, let me give you an example. In Jesus gave parables, so let's give a mashal. Let's just pretend that someone comes and steals my car, and we catch them, and we say, what are you going to do, Aaron? Well, I can turn the other cheek. I forgive you. Great. But there's another actor in this play. It's called the police. And the police say, they stole your car. You're going to go to jail, whether you forgive them or not. So the government of Israel has a responsibility to its citizens. And so it's doing something. So let's not superimpose the teachings of Jesus to his community, which you and I need to behave. You and I need to behave that way and put it on that. So that should be something different. So how should we relate to governments? Well, that's an excellent question. And in in this situation in the Middle East, especially in this crisis, people are assigning a blame left, right, and center. It's Israel's fault. It's the Hamas's fault. It's the fault of the British. Okay, with the mandators, Jordanians. You name a time period, it is somebody else's fault. Well, let's have a look at how the Bible relates to this. So I'm going to give a look at 2 Samuel 24, where it's the end of David's life. He's had a spectacular career, ups and downs. I mean, he's slain giants and done inappropriate things with ladies. But at the end of his life, he goes out and does something also very dumb. In chapter 24 of 2 Samuel, we read that the anger of the Lord was roused against Israel, and he moved David and said, "Go number the people and Judah." Now, in Chronicles, it actually will say was actually Satan that aroused David to take a census. David takes a census of the people of Israel, which was forbidden. God had said in Numbers, don't count the number of soldiers that you have. You're not meant to know how powerful you are. You're meant to just relate to people on a one-to-one level. So like Jesus is teaching us, this is how you relate to each other. Turn the other cheek. Don't take people to court. Keep people, this is how you relate to each other. Well, David wanted to take a census, and he did. And he counted them from Dan to Beersheba. And at the end of counting, he realizes he had made a boo-boo. That, oops, probably shouldn't have done that. And then the prophet Gad shows up. Gad is actually one of the traditional authors of Samuel. It's very funny that the actual book of Samuel is named after the guy who dies in chapter 17 of the first book. Okay, but he still keeps going on in part 2 with a book named after him, even though he's dead. So Gad is the traditional writer, and he says, David, you've made a mistake. Here's the punishment. You get to choose. And he gives him 3 options. Do you want a plague for 3 days? Do you want to have enemies pursue you, etc.? Or you want famine? And David says, I can't choose. And so God sends a plague. And the plague ravages the land of Israel. And 70,000 Israelites die. Now, who numbered the people? David. Who suffered? The people. Did the people choose to be numbered? No. Are they affected by the plague? Yes. So what does this teach us? It's the burden of responsibility of leadership. If you have a good leader, and they make good decisions, they're wise, then the people are blessed. If the leadership make poor decisions, if they don't follow the ways of the Lord, if they ignore his teachings, just if they're bad, then the people suffer. That is true of all human history. So people blame Israel, they blame the Palestinians. If you want to lay the blame at anyone, take a look at the leadership. And you say, hey, Hamas, you're the leaders. What are you doing? If we're going to ask Israel to turn the other cheek, perhaps you should have turned the other cheek first. Then we wouldn't be in this mess in the first place. If we actually want to superimpose the morality of the New Testament on top of a Muslim nation, which is ironic because that's not going to happen, then does not Jesus tell us that under occupation, you're supposed to carry a Roman pack 2 miles instead of 1? Or wouldn't that be nice if the Hamas had taught their followers to do that? But of course, we can't impose New Testament theology on top of an Islamic nation. But you can hold their leadership to account. And don't worry, Israel will hold its leaders to account. And at the end of this, they will have an investigation. and they will find out who made the boo-boos, who wasn't paying attention, and they will lose their jobs. We'll see how far up that goes. But the model that Jesus teaches us of turning the other cheek, that's for our community, and that's what we're doing with the refugees that are coming to us, whether they're Arabs fleeing or whether they're Jewish people fleeing, whether they're believers or whether they're not believers. We will care for every single one of them. And because that's what we've been taught to do by our Messiah. We will not run away, but we will engage with their suffering. And we might not have all the answers, but we can have a tear for them if they need it. And we can give them hope when they need it, and they'll need it. Hamas has given people a reality that nobody wants. They have given a teaching and they've put a theology on their community, and nobody wants it. Not even the Palestinians want that. And they are just a series of evil dictators who have absolutely no business running anything, particularly a nation state. And they have devastated their people, and they are leading them to ruin. And it is unbelievably sad what they are doing. So when we pray, yes, we should also pray for the Palestinian people, because they are suffering under very, very poor leadership. Yes, we should pray for Israelis, because they are suffering from those poor leaders in Gaza for no reason. They didn't start this, but they're suffering, and they're looking for answers. They're looking for a hope, and that is something that our community can give them. And outside of Israel, the entire world looks at this. Isn't it amazing how quickly we move and stop talking about Russia and Ukraine and start talking about Israel again? Jerusalem seems to be a part of everybody's language, and we have rallies in every city, around the world, and people are angry and they're upset and they're ignorant and they're irrational and they're illogical. And so we need to be like the Messiah and not run away. We need to be able to engage with that. And the way we do this is, of course, one, by the power of the Spirit. If you don't know what to say, just wait for the Holy Spirit to give it. But the best thing that is always the truth that sets you free. So you can share stories of what we're doing in Israel, where we assist both Arabs and Jews, and without prejudice, but also to challenge. At the core of this is an intense, ancient hatred which has raised its ugly head once again, and that is indeed anti-Semitism. And this is something that we are seeing reflected out in today. It's an ancient enemy, and it can only be overcome by the Messiah. So in terms of things that we need to pray about, we need to pray about the truth, because the first casualty of war is always the truth. No one tells the truth anymore, and that's actually a bit sad. Continue to pray. We are always instructed to pray for our enemies, but let's remember they're still enemies. Okay, I know that sounds really strange to say that, but it's an irony. There's a lot of irony always in the Middle East, where people run to the center of the country, which happens to be 50-50 Arab and Jewish, and that tends to be the safest place out of all the country. Isn't that amazing? Okay, I personally find that actually be quite ironic. My neighbors across the road from me are Arabs. There's a Muslim just around the corner, and everybody is okay. We're not in panic mode in that respect. When it comes time to pray, yes, we do need to pray for the soldiers, the looming ground operation, which everybody keeps talking about. And I know everybody has an opinion about whether we should or whether we shouldn't go in. I just want everybody to know that as soon as people go into Gaza, cities eat armies. Okay? That's all of human history. There's no winning this. If anybody watched Christchurch on Sunday, the 8th of October, we had a worship service. We didn't really know whether we should or we shouldn't, but we said, God's God, and he still deserves to be worshipped. And we really need to pray. So we went to church and we worshipped and we prayed our little hearts out. But when it was my turn to get up, I said, this isn't about winning and losing because we already lost. We lost. Jesus won. That's true. And this isn't about winning or losing. It's about the power of the Messiah and the way he engaged in our suffering and how we can model that and reflect that and engage with people, and that wins. Okay, that actually will be the ultimate victory. If Israel sends their army into Gaza, if they don't do it this weekend, they probably won't do it at all. But they're going to lose 12 to 20 soldiers a day. Okay, that's horrible. That's and the longer this goes on, more of them are going to die, and they will not rescue one single hostage. Hostages are released only by negotiation, okay, or by Delta teams and SWAT teams, coming in the middle of the night doing stuff. Okay, you've all seen the movies. They are not rescued by invading armies. Okay, so be very careful if people want to pray for, let's go and start killing people and take over Gaza. It's next to impossible. Okay, there's not enough soldiers to do that. Israel needs wisdom. They really need wisdom, and they're hurting. Okay, they're hurting as a nation and as a people, and they're looking at a future that doesn't look good. You can send a lot of soldiers into Gaza and more people will die, or you could not send people into Gaza. You've still got all these hostages. What are you going to do with them? Right? It's a lose-lose. It's incredibly painful here for a lot of people, and but don't run away from that. That Jesus didn't run away from that. So let's not. We have to engage with it and work with it and work on helping people. And in a little bit of a way, you'll be able to shine some light, because there is hope. There's always hope. All right.